So, Michael, you often see the bigger picture in the type of work that you do.
Yes.
What's the bigger picture that you see in orienteering that keeps you so passionate about it?
Well, I think orienteering is a metaphor for life. I think what we all are is we have things we would like to do. We'd like to get to the finish of our life in a way, in a productive, happy, fun way. And the metaphor is you get to do it, in under 3 hours. And you're lost the whole time. You're always lost. Even though you think you're on, there are errors called parallel errors, where you think you know where you are and you're somewhere else. Looks right, but it isn't right. And one of the most fun things in orienteering is to recognize you're lost and how to recover. And Mary Andrews not in today. Dristy, you got to take this down. Dristy?
Yeah.
When you're lost and you take it down, you got to take the notes.
Oh.
When you're lost and you need to recover, the fact that you have to recognize you're lost. And the second thing is you have to have a big picture to relocate yourself. And this is how you how you put the chain back together of the means. Okay, you can't put the chain together if you don't know if it's broken or if blocked. Okay, so orienteering teaches this skill in real time. And it's like with brain injured kids, often walking them through the cognitive processes. They transfer from their motor learning into their other learning. And I think that happens in orienteering. You learn all the planning skills, the judgment skills, and you learn to move fast. And one of the things that precision teaching teaches you is to move fast, but you never get to practice it on really hard problems. And orienteering is so difficult. Even the best orienteers always make a mistake in every meet. And you have to be undaunted by making mistakes. And it's not about pleasing anybody else. And so learning to compete against yourself is what real sport is about.
So
You're not standing in judgment of anybody.
that's really nice story. I can see how that relates to maybe you and your professional work or your students and their work.
And the relationships with the opposite sex, it's like orienteering. If you don't solve the problems as you go, you're finished. And what orienteering always is about is keeping in contact with the map and the environment and your rate of moving forward. So you're keeping 3 dependent variables coordinated. Independent variables. Well, one's a dependent. Your rate of moving forward. Segun and Shuling once ran way ahead of us, but they ended up overlooking a 40-foot cliff. So all the running was for naught. And that's what I'm telling you most good students do. And that's the Chinese model of failure. Going fast and getting nowhere. Huh?
Can you recall an example in your own professional work where that lesson
What?
was loud and apparent, that you needed to slow down and figure out what the bigger goal was and that you might have been headed in the wrong direction?
Every time yeah, when the Dare School folded, I realized that the behavioral approach to autism was bankrupt. I quit. And I knew that without real research, not fooling around with contingencies, was going to be worthless. And guess what? No improvement in the rate of success since 1972. None. Zero. So I've been proved right. You have to have a developmental approach. And the developmental instrument which you adopted for dogs, we haven't empirically checked it out, but it should be true everywhere. It shouldn't just be true for dogs and autistic people. It should be true for everybody in every area, every domain. But they're unanswered questions. We really don't know how stage change takes place. And we know that reinforcement is helpful, but we think that's more transfer of training than new acquisition. We don't even know if there's really acquisition of stage. I mean, those are the kind of theoretical questions that bug me. We do not know why. We know when stage appears that's due to reinforcement, but not when you first acquire it. We don't know. And I think Donald Baer was an evil doer because he thought that all behavior analysis was adevelopmental. And that's why he had the ABA design. And I think that's immoral. Did I answer your question?
That answered your question, yes, sir.
And I quit behavior analysis. It was only John Nevin who said we should move Squab after Dick Herrnstein died to ABBA. And I reluctantly went along with it, and I'm still reluctant because Squab used to be dynamic and now it's boring and repetitive and conformistic. So I think it was a good choice and a bad choice. Like President Buchanan. He caused the Civil War, but he also supported Hawthorne and Melville. Mixed bag, like most things.
Michael, did your understanding of the quantitative analysis of behavior influence the way you think about development, or did the way you think about development help shape how you view the quantitative analysis?
In graduate school, even in undergraduate school, as I said, Joanne and I were always interested in development. And I've always been interested in adult development. I remember David Kahn's sister became a Seventh-day Adventist with 2 atheist parents, and I just didn't understand how she got there. And I was hooked on adult development at that time. And that was when I was 12 or 11. And I just didn't know how adults came about. And I was not interested. I do infant developmental work. I do all the different periods. But I still find most of the differences in life are in adulthood. That's the make or break time in people's lives. They all sort of look the same as undergraduates. At the MA level, you guys are still total failures. So, you never learn to ask the big questions. And I think a lot of students at Harvard never get there either. So I'm not telling you it's the quality of school. I don't know what it's due to. But I think the big question of route choice is a major thing that I've applied in my life. before I knew orienteering, route choice. Yeah, how do things go from here to there? But not in a simple-minded way. I never thought it was reinforcement that controlled this woman. I now know, and she didn't have abusive parents either, so I really don't know. She was ugly. That's the only thing I could think of. But I was always quantitative from 12 years on. I read Foundations by Isaac Asimov. I was a quantitative behavioral scientist. I was a developmental scientist from 12 on. So there wasn't a chicken and egg problem. How to put them together really only happened at the blackboard at Northern, and I've written that up. I realized you couldn't compare finite presentations of the laundry. You took the laundry problem,
Yes.
and that's finite. And you could have answered it with a three-way interaction as opposed to one causal variable, and you would have been right. We got 2 out of like 200 cases like that, or very rare. But it's there, and that's because it's a finite sequence, and all finite sequences have dependencies, and infinite sequences don't. And especially if you have Aleph sub 1 type infinities like pi and e, there are no repetitions. Whereas if you have rational numbers, there are repetitions. So I already knew set theory, and that from my sophomore year, maybe second sophomore year. I had 3 sophomore years.
You liked it that much? Or?
No, but I took this class from, I guess it was, I took logic, I think I took it at UCLA, it was my junior year. But I got an A. I understood Gödel's theorem. I had a lot of classes, mathematics classes, where they interviewed you. I did much better than the calculatory ones. I mean, I always understood the concepts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a conceptual mathematician, not a pencil and paper. I'm always conceptual. And I don't care that much about technique. Goodbye, Saranya. So, anyway, did I answer your question or not?
Yes, sir. I have one more.
Yeah?
Didn't you think a little bit more about this interview than wear your stained shirt to it?
No, I don't care.
Okay. Okay.
This stain, that's from the hospital.
Oh, man.
Do I care about these things? What do I? This is part of me, right?
It sure is.
Being 75 and being an old man?
That's your style. I found one other man your age this morning, though, had a similar style.
Come on, it's not a style issue. That's like an attitude. This is like not checking. I would
your
change
style.
my,
That's
no,
your
it's not a,
style.
no. That's an attitude version, and I'm totally, even though Herrnstein shows that attitudes are tendencies to behave, when you get old, you just don't check as much. That's why the grass grows outside old people's houses. You know, weeds. You just, you know, you don't have the energy.